Welcome back to What the Flag. I am blessed to be joined by the Yasmin and the Kenny. So excited, guys. Look, I had a sneaky doorbell go off right before this. I just drove back from landing at the airport and I've ordered my takeaway for this evening. Yas, what's going on with you? I know it's freezing in the States. This is not exactly what you're thinking about for Mayweather.
No, I thought I was going to come here and be wearing shorts and t-shirt every day. Even today, as we record, it is so glum outside. The fattest raindrops are falling from the sky. I've never seen raindrops that are so big. Um,
Why are we out here fat shaming the rain? Come on now, like what's going
they're just really big circles. Like you don't need to be that aggressive. Why are you that big? Okay, just send lots. Um, but the weather has been, funny enough, we've actually had two really nice days of sun. And when we woke up this morning, we thought, oh, it will get brighter. No, it has not got brighter. But the weather hasn't been amazing. Last week and the week before, we had some storms, which is great because I live near a storm drain. So it looks like a river in the morning, which is like my favorite thing to look at. But yeah, the weather could definitely be warmer. Hence the hoodie and the zip up today. But
the
it's not
thermals?
too
Did
bad.
you have a
The,
game
and
this
the
weekend?
Yes, just had a game, our second home game, and it was boiling, and obviously we play on turf, so that was even
Oh,
hotter. But yeah, unfortunately, didn't win.
oh, sound effects.
No, but
Oh,
we've got to face them on the road now, so we've got to travel to them, which is a 4-hour drive in a few days' time. So we'll see what happens.
okay.
Hopefully, the rematch will be even better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast from around the world, which is amazing. And it's one of the first things I get asked when I moved to the UK is why everyone talks about the weather so much. But genuinely, it is a real thing because
Yeah.
it's a big part of your everyday existence, but also it changes so much throughout the day. So I'm glad that the people in the States are now getting the true version of what it's like to be British. You've got to ask about the weather first.
Oh, every single day. Every single day. And you got to make some kind of spontaneous comment like, oh, a bit chilly, isn't it? A bit cold, or oh, I had to bring an umbrella with me today. It has to be something like, like almost that starts off an anecdote, and then there'll be like this one time I brought an umbrella and then something moment.
And Mr. Kenny, you came back. I mean, you've been on the a world tour. It feels like you've been Amsterdam, Switzerland last weekend, Spain this weekend. I mean, how is all of that going? All for flag football. That's huge.
How's the
It
weather?
is. It's super cool, super cool. I've always said like one of the best bits about flag is the ability to travel and meet people. This past weekend I did a day trip to Switzerland, which is
Oh,
as bougie as I've felt in a
very
while.
business of you.
The gentleman who checked my passport when I was leaving Switzerland was like, that's quite a short trip. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, hey, football calls, I have to answer. So that's where we're at. And then he was like, oh, sports. Okay, fair enough. I was like, do people do that? Do people fly in and out of places on the same day? I don't know. But no, it was great to meet the guys in Switzerland working with their youth national programs. It's always so exciting to see like all the talent and on show and all the potential that there is. And some interesting characters as always, which is, when you work with youth, there's always some smart kid that's like, I'm better than you. I'm like, no, you're
And
not.
when
No,
you
you're not.
say youth, what age is that? What age range?
So that's a good question. They have four teams that range basically from under 21s all the way to under 15s, according to the IFAF rule. So I think the under 21 piece is quite a new thing for a lot of nations. So that's going to be some interesting tournaments and competitions that allows us to see kind of who's coming next, which I'm really looking forward to. Really looking forward to it.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? And I think it's so fascinating. I'd love to know your opinion on you go to all these different countries. I think even coming up, you'll be going to Turkey, we'll go to China at some point, all with flag football. Do you find that there's a real difference in each of the coaching staffs that you go and visit? Like, can you tell, oh, my Spanish folk are like this, the Swiss folk are like this, or is it, you just come in and do your thing?
It's really interesting. I think what I'm finding is coaches fit certain profiles. So, you know, like I can walk into a room and you can generally tell. I won't name names. Again, I got in trouble for that last time, so I won't do that again. But you can walk I can walk into a room and you can kind of figure out, oh, that could just come from a tackle background. Not because of anything other than the way they carry themselves, or that coach is gonna be defensive minded, maybe quite aggressive. That's about, you know, so they fit, there are particular molds that coaches fill. And I think but by and large, because, and like, you know, we say 1,000 times, say it one more time, because flag is still so new, I think people are still really finding themselves as well. Even though they've been coaching for a while, the game itself is evolving at such a rate that you're having to learn anyway. However long you've been in, we're all having to learn and develop. And you know, we're gonna, I think yeah, we're gonna get onto that in a bit. But it's that essence of growing and growth that's super key to all of it.
And I wanted to just, before we move forwards, like you're talking about, we never really got the opportunity. You were out in Amsterdam not too long ago, working with one of our friends, Coach Wayne.
Coach
Um,
Wayne,
you know, and
other Wayne,
other Wayne,
Black Coach
other
Wayne, not white Coach Wayne.
and just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that as well. It was great to see, you know, Ambra, who is player coach, out there coaching, you know, getting more women involved in the coaching piece as well. Real just great collaboration to make a very eventful flag football weekend happen. If you're happy, just
Absolutely.
tell the
Absolutely. No, and
people.
yeah, Amber is also, she's also a member on the board for I don't know what AFBN stands for, but that's the Dutch governing body for football. No, it was great. They were part of they have a next gen, I'll call it a festival that was 3 days in the Amsterdam Olympic Stadium, which was the Olympics in 19 either 24 or 1928. The stadium has been around since, at least. And the Friday was a massive event that they had. I think it's something between 800 and 1,000 young people, like primary school age kids, come to try flag for the first time on the Friday. The Saturday was a flag football tournament, a really super fun one. Some amazing characters and some funny people out there. I do love those guys. And then Sunday was a women's only flag clinic. That again was just real focus on promoting flag for girls and women in the sport. A great time all round. Um, some funny stories in the hotel that I cannot share on a podcast for fear of yes. I'll keep that to myself, I
Oh
think.
gosh, we've lost Kenny and his
Oh
PG,
dear.
his whatever's happening out there. Well,
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna really ask really quickly. So you said 1,000 sort of young people turned up on the Friday. Are the teams for the Saturday then formed from that same 1,000, or do you get a different group of like?
No, so the tournament on the Saturday was completely separate. So the kids learning on Friday are all probably brand new to the sport. The teams are some of the local teams, but they invited either, you know, players that used to play a while ago, or it was a real community gathering, and they had a flag, a banner that said "No drama, just flag," you know, which I really appreciated, because it was like, yeah, we're not into all of the mess and the fuss. We're just here to have fun, play some good football, and I mean, some really good teams, some really good plays. So yeah, that was really cool.
Amazing.
awesome. And we must say, you know, for yourself, Kenny, and for producer Blessing as well, there's been a championship that's occurred the past couple of days
Let's see.
that I think, well, first off, you know, huge congratulations to Liverpool winning the Premier
Let's
League.
go.
Yes, yes, Kenny, but and obviously all of our thoughts and prayers go out to all the people that were involved in such a
Mm,
horrible accident at the parade, only just on Monday. But
mm.
you know, congratulations to Liverpool. They've been a team that have been phenomenal. You bring in a new manager. I mean, you know, I loved Jurgen Klopp from a managerial perspective, but I
This is
wanted to
Phoebe
talk.
flexing. So who's our new manager? Just I'm testing.
No,
Something slow.
it's the face that goes with
It's
it.
the face, something slot. Arne slot.
But to win like that is so hard. And, you know, I think it kind of bodes this question around, especially in football, like soccer football, you're always essentially changing your head coach, so to speak. Like your manager's
Mm.
always changing, and I don't understand how there can ever be consistency with the players, with the scheme. So when
So
you really break it down, like how do you look at it?
I mean, it's not every team. I mean, teams are free to change their head coaches whenever. You know, you've got similarly, you've got NFL teams that change their coaches almost like every season, if not multiple times a season. I think it's a bit less in soccer, normal football, but it's. I think the there's a saying, right, that in the Premiership, it's you don't win it by accident. It's 38 games. It's a 38 game season. Like if you win it, you deserve it. Any chance to laugh at the likes of Arsenal, Manchester United, and Tottenham and Chelsea is is
Look, we do
is
not believe what Kenny Mello says. We have our own
no,
opinions as well. We
yeah,
love
yeah,
everybody.
yeah.
Cannot
My
laugh at
my but my
Arsenal.
opinions,
Laugh at
my
everyone else.
opinions, my opinions are my own and absolutely correct. And also, can I just call out the fact that how classy are we as Liverpool fans that we've known for weeks that we were the champions, but you wouldn't really know it. We just kept our heads down, we kept it moving.
You
It was
clearly don't
it
know
was
enough Liverpool fans. If
but
you're an
no,
Arsenal
no.
fan, you knew it.
If you well,
You
yeah,
knew.
I think but no, I think it's so important that as things change, that coaches are able to come in because and the person kind of want to talk about here is Ruben Amorim, the Manchester United manager, right? Who he's been brought in. So they had Ten Hag before. Again, another interesting guy. We won't go into details of all of it, but the interesting thing about Ruben Amorim and the way he's come in is he's come in and made it very plainly known that he has a specific structure, that he likes to play a specific formation. And not only that, that they do not at this current time have the players to play the system he wants to play. But he's not changed the system at all. He's kept the same system and they've had a horrendous season off the back of it, right? For those that know football, to the points, I think they've just about got more points than they played matches, which is almost equivalent of pretty much drawing every single game they played, which for Manchester United is a crazy statistic, right? The record loss number of losses, I believe, in a season. The question is this, right? And the thought process is like, how has he, as a top football coach, football manager, been allowed to get away with having a system and not adapting to those he plays? And then we bring that to American football and this idea of, well, do you have, as a coach, do you have a system that you have to fit the players into, or do you develop a system that you build the players on? I don't know what experiences you guys have had with that and in that regard. I don't know if if you'd even know enough about what coaches came in with that you've had coach you, but it's a question.
Yes.
So I'm a lineman, so for me, I guess offensively, you get a lot of coaches that are really willing to work with linemen. I think most coaches sort of come in with an idea of what they want to do, right? They turn around, they go, right, I want to run heavy offense, and this is what we're going to run. And then you see what you recruit, and then maybe it sort of adapts like along the season. I've always found that the coaches that I've worked with have always been sort of really willing to scheme, especially towards the people that are on the line and the people that are on the backfield. So if I take someone like Coach D, for example, we run quite a run heavy offense. And that was because, the seasons that we played and the seasons that we were at our best, we had a really strong line. We had a line that communicated really well. And therefore we had a lot of our own audibles. So we'd call a play and he'd sort of give us the autonomy to be able to say, right, I'm actually going to add to this play by pulling. I'm going to add to the play by blocking this direction instead of that direction. And then we also had a really good running back in the backfield. So we had Shiv in the backfield, who's obviously really good at reading
Average,
the game.
average.
But then that really helps. So I guess in that sense, I've been very much schemed towards, like I've joined teams before where they've set up part of their offense to cater for us. So DC would be a really good example of that. So obviously me and Jackie are here, and there are some plays that they've installed to scheme for me and Jackie because they've watched our film and they've been like, right, they're good at this. So they've added that in, and I think the flexibility that comes with that, I think, is amazing. I think it's really difficult sometimes to expect players to just adapt. I think when it comes to tackle football, I mean, you guys can definitely talk about the flag side of it, but when it comes to tackle football, sometimes depending on what you're scheming on means that you might have to change your whole way of play. If you're a fast player as opposed to a stronger player, a player that bases themselves in strength, you know, you might not be able to run, say, I don't know, a wedge as well as you could run an outside zone. But if you know that you can get that outside end, you know, as an offense that sort of a run play that works on your speed and your ability to get your foot placement is much better suited to you. And I've always found that the coaches that I've worked with have sort of been willing to do that. But I'm in a very easy position to do that. I think it's very easy to scheme towards a lineman. I think maybe when you're a receiver, it's maybe a little bit more, I don't know, challenging because there's so many other positions to consider, you know, before they, you know, might look towards a passing play or something. But
Yaz is just out here casually flexing with all the technical terms and the football jargon. Now you have to a wedge
prove
and
that I
what?
know stuff occasionally, you know.
Yeah, that was
But
good.
I do think from a flag perspective, and just looking at some of the coaches I've had across the years, Jack Reed came in and has done a really nice job with our women's GB team from, offensive play caller, now our head coach. And, I think you have an ultimate core idea. I think within flag, you only know what you know. And I think the more that you put yourself out there, the more that you experience, the more you kind of, I like this, combination. I like this kind of philosophy around it. So I'd say Jack has a really solid idea of, I guess, who we are as offense, but he's open to collaboration with players. And I think when you get into flag football, you need to be able to, one, have those real conversations, game time, speed, but also understand that every play you've got to be thinking about what every single person's doing because you only have four options. I mean, technically, yes, five, you can do quarterback running and stuff like that, but based off of your personnel, you really only have your center and three receivers or whatever that looks like. And so everybody has to play a role. And I think you have to be really specific within that. But I think the best coaches I've been around have figured out who their players are and built their scheme around that because and I've seen it in the past. We've had schemes that just don't work. Maybe the scheme itself makes sense. However, you don't actually have the athletes to fulfill that role. And
Who is
so
who is we, Phoebe? Who
and
is
so
the
if you
we?
don't have the athletes to fulfill the role, it doesn't matter how good your scheme is, based off of that anyways. So I think you have to kind of be able to do both. And it is, something that moves back and forth. But I think with the flag world, especially at the club, domestic level, you're probably relying on your quarterback who has a bunch of plays and they just say, hey, this is what we're going to do because this is what they are comfortable with and you as a player must fit into it. And then defense, I think it's only recently, perhaps at a club level, and I might be wrong, that people are starting to be a bit more creative with their defenses. But I know, Ken, obviously you're playing in the mixed league right now, so you'll have a bit more of experience there.
Yeah, and I think it's a number of things, right? First of all, I think especially from a coaching standpoint, creativity is a massive skill that I think is really slept on in terms of being a coach, right? Because I think there is a huge school of coaching that came from schools. And what I mean by that is like, hey, we run the West Coast offense, right? The run and shoot type deal. So it's a whole way of playing football that they sit under and they learn, and then that's what you do. We're a wing T offense, and it's a run game, and it's a lot of runs and spheres and misdirection and so on and so forth. But actually, what flag allows you to do is that essence of backyard football, right? Where you can just make it up as you go along a bit because it really is quite a flexible. It's a simple game, but you can be very flexible within it. Now, I remember as a player, I would call myself someone who played with a lot of flair, like was able to adapt and change based on what I saw when my experience took me there. And I remember really struggling when, through the different phases of the GB program, I came across a coach and a quarterback who were like, no, you have to run the routes like this every single time. And I'm just like, I'm not facing the same defense every single time. I'm not facing. So, and it's kind of what you both alluded to in terms of coaches, QBs, whoever's calling the play callers, being able to work with the receivers or the other players to make sure that there is some room in there for adaptation and creativity. Because I believe if we're not able to, I've again, I'm not throwing any shade here, but I believe we're witnessing some coaches that really struggle to adapt either to their players. Being able to adapt within the game is a big thing as well. And it's just, as I said, the ability to create and to tweak and change and adapt on the fly is a real key skill that I think a lot of people, we're looking maybe more at football theory than the actual creation making.
Why do you think that is? Like, I mean, we could go back to, mine and Phoebe's favorite show and be like, Ted Lasso like was very much like adamant in the way he wanted to coach, but obviously the result of that was sort of like a team that was a lot more like unified and stuff. Sorry, no, it's fictional, but sort of
It's
why
very
would you
real.
say that is the case for some
But
coaches that they're so
uh,
sort of
you give Ted Lasso as an example, but he was able to, it was his big umbrella belief that was strict, but actually within it, they were able to play different styles, different types of games, right? And if I'm honest, I think, and I am honest, I'm always honest. I think I think it's fear. I think it's fear of the unknown, right? So when you come up against things you don't know, you're not sure of, you go for the reset, right? You go to what you know best, you go for the comfortable thing, you go back to what you know, right? And then I question, and I'm pushing the boat all the way out here, but I question, hey, how well do you know it if you're not able to manipulate it, right? If
And I think that's the key part of it, really, is that a lot of people don't necessarily understand, and it's without coaching, flag, tackles, soccer, whatever sport. A lot of people don't actually go through the process of asking to understand. They're just like, oh, this is the scheme. We're going to make this happen. I'm going to have them play this scheme. But what if this happens? And what if this happens? Well, you don't actually understand the rules enough to know that. And I think back to kind of Yaz's question a little bit and what you were saying at the end before, Ken, I don't think that internationally people have enough in-game experience of literal calling games, because you have to think from an international perspective. If all you're doing is coaching your national program or maybe your youth program, you maybe have cumulatively, I mean, this year's a bit different because we'll have world games and Euros. You maybe have like 10, 12 games a year. Well, think about in the States where you have youth flag games every single weekend or adult games every single weekend. And then you've got, regionals and you've got finals, and you're in these tightly contested matches all the time. So you get to learn how to adapt in the moment and how to make those changes. And so, yes, some of it is definitely fear, because I think one of my biggest bugbears is people aren't willing to put themselves out there, go to the States, go learn from your Mike and Matt Remels from Flag Football Life, go learn from NFL Flag, like go volunteer and see what it's like to put together an event or see what the competition level is. Not enough people are willing to do that. And I think that's where my frustration lies, where a lot of people say they want to get to that next level. But how many of our coaches know what that next level looks like or feels like? And so for me, I think a lot of people are grasping at straws.
And I've got to take that opportunity to shout out one of the two of like super close friends as coaches, Andy Bather at Birmingham Lions and Marcel Baker at Northants Ducks, as two relatively close geographically, coaches who actually their teams play each other an awful lot. While they have a cheerful bit of banter about, destroying each other's teams or whatever, they actually take the time to learn from each other. And I think you alluded to it, Phoebe, like there has to be an openness to have your ideas challenged, right? And don't be so beholden to being correct that you're then not able to have discussions around it. So shout out to those coaches. Like I've had a chance to work with them pretty much every week since December, and it's just been such good fun, but it also great learning process. So casual plug for the Jukes Institute there. Cough cough.
And we love it. And of course, we got to shout out to Yaz, who actually is doing it as well, going to the States, putting yourself, making yourself uncomfortable. And for anybody that's looking at the real, who I still think, and I think all of us think, are the real definition of scheme to players, just watch Japan play. They do a terrific job of saying, this is who we've got, how are we going to make it work using our strengths. So really great team to watch. And of course, our QB Chihiro, who's killing it, playing out in the States as well in the college game. So for now, make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, click the bell, and we will see you next week on What the Flag.